Hey guys, Jarretman here, back with some more 500 Zoom. Just want to show a hand I just played right before I started this session. So I opened small blind with king 8 off, and get called from the big blind. We go for a check on this board. We're going to be checking a lot, if not just checking range. We face this small bet and we go for the check call. Turn is the queen of spades, and we check. He bets normal size, we call. River is an offsuit queen, we check. He bets normal size, and we go all in. And I think in this spot here, having the king of diamonds is better than having, sorry, it's not better. I think having the king of diamonds is the only diamond we want, as I think his bet folds on the river are going to be low flushes, whereas his king high diamonds will be calling the river. So if we had like jack of diamonds 8, I don't think we would want to go all in, but I'm not exactly sure. Having the 8 is nice because he doesn't have pocket 10s, but he does have pocket 8s. He can have queen 8 suited, and this blocks queen 8 suited. I guess he has queen 8 off as well. Anyways, the point is, yeah, I just missed this hand in this video. I think we use this one on the river. I'm not exactly sure. If he folds the king high flushes on the river, then using that hand is bad, and we would rather just use a hand without the diamond, but I think that's how it works there. Table 1, I like the idea of playing overbet or check. However, this player is unknown. Yeah, I'm still going to play overbet or check. And I think on 74 we'll go for the overbet. I don't think we want to do it very often. And then on the river, our blockers are not great. I'm going to bet a size. I think I can get him to fold a queen. I don't think this is a hand that wants to bluff, though. Maybe that was a little too ambitious, just going off the read that he is a unknown player. We'll go for the raise on 93 here. Versus the very large 4-bet, we just have the easiest fold of all time. I'm not quite sure what's going on there, to be honest. So I'm going to play 75 or check on this turn, and I think the very, very low flushes want to go mainly into the betting range. Table 2, I'm just going to limp versus the weaker player in the big blind. And we'll limp call versus that very small size, even though we have 8 high out of position. Versus pot on the mono A-side board, I'm just going to fold. On 80, we'll go for a bet here on table 1. And table 2, we're going to be mostly checking this board back. Or at least, sorry, maybe not mostly checking this board back, but checking this board back a lot, I should say. Maybe like half the time, depending on my bet size. And I think this hand can do both. It operates as a really nice bet, as it has 2 overs versus a lot of his calling range. Table 1's really close with the ace of diamonds versus the small raise. I think specifically with the 6. Yeah, I think with the 6 we call. This could be a punt here on table 1. So on the river, we're actually blocking some of his check calls, because some of his check calls are going to be like ace jack, ace 10, and then his check folds are going to be the other ace x, like ace 9, ace 8. Also, we block 10-5 suited and jack 5 suited. You know what? I don't mind raising this on 87, actually. With that in mind, considering it's the small bet and we block. What a horrible spot here on table 1. Versus the large overbet, I guess I'm going to fold. I think I just butchered this hand. Yeah, we're going to raise here. I think we can raise any pair still. Let's say we did check down a hand like ace-6 or 7s through aces. We're definitely going to raise the river versus small size. And yeah, on 87 with, or whatever that number was, we're going to call here, being deeper with the small blind. Yeah, I still like the raise here, because he's not blocking hands that have a jack and 10 that fold, that are value, really, as we match the 6. So let's say he does have a hand like 10-6 suited or jack-6 suited. Yeah, I don't know, on table 1. We'll definitely bet it some of the time. With exactly pocket 4s, I am going to build a raising range, and we just have to be aware of the fact that when we do have pocket 4s, we will want to be raising. So we'll put some, I guess, 3s and 2s in there. Seems like the most reasonable raises, or maybe even a hand like 5-4 that check back the flop. You know, all things considered, it's a pretty good turn river for my range, even though it's just a range that I came up with in my head and not like a real range. It's actually getting a little thin to start betting. Am I just kind of sizing my hand here with a normal bet? I guess I am. I still want to get called by an ace. And basically a lot of my bluffs improved on the river. Also, he does river some 3x as well as ace 2, ace 3. So he improves to a lot of hands. I improve to a lot of hands. This is approaching like the bottom of my value bets, actually. We can do both here on table 2. We'll call it check raise unless it's ridiculously huge. I think range betting is fine here as well. Not folding any pairs in between the 6 and the king, I'm pretty sure. Obviously, we would prefer to have the heart, but a lot of his check raising range, or at least some of his check raising range, will be a 6, will be a 2. Hands we're ahead of. The 7 of clubs maybe isn't the greatest card. If he did limp call a hand that has the 7 of clubs, might get into the flop check raising range, like I guess 7, 8 of clubs. Not sure how often that limp calls though. Yeah. Now I'd rather call a 6. I'd rather call even a hand like ace 2, I think, than pocket 7s. I think pocket 7s just goes into the fold now. Not too much to say about that. The better strategy, as in like the safer strategy here in this hand in the replayer, might just be to have no raises on the turn, because you're basically repping one hand. Because if you did trap ace 5 suited on the flop, that doesn't necessarily want to raise the turn. The only hand that really wants to raise the turn is, again, pocket 4s, which we have though. So carving out the super small raising range, yeah, I don't hate it. We'll mix here on table 2, bet sometimes, check sometimes. Just thinking of which size makes the most sense. If I was heads up, I think half pot makes a decent amount of sense. I think 1/3 3 ways. Sizing down in general in multi-way is usually a good idea. Here we have absolute position, so wouldn't be terrible to do anything really. So I don't know what his calling range is going to look like from the small blind, but if it's anything reasonable, he's going to have something that connects with the board here, especially with the big blind player left act behind him. It's just a question of whether or not we want to triple this, and I think I do want to triple this versus a recreational. I think a recreational has very easy calls on the flop and turn, and then really tough spots on the river, except for that river. Because he has a lot of hands like 8-9 suited, Jack-9 suited, 7-9 suited, pocket 9s. I guess 5-4. Checking back a lot here again on table 1. We're just going to fold. It's a pretty terrible result for that hand. However, I think on this specific river, it's the one river, even though my hand is a hand that wants to follow through. It's not going to follow through too often. And we're going to check back again on table 1. Betting the flop is an option. Betting the turn is an option. I think now we have a GTO check back in a spot where we don't really win, but that's okay. Yeah, I mean, again, like that's the drawback of checking that hand back twice. But if the river was a queen instead of a 10, we could have bet it for value and got called, so. Again, a spot. I don't think it's super important to have a check back range on table 1. Table 2, exactly with ace-9, I like checking. We get a bet a lot here. We open, offsuit 8x, and it's a rainbow jack-high board, so we just get a bet a lot in general. And then versus pot, I'm gonna fold. when you're looking at trips boards, it's often important to first consider how many trips both players have or how many relative trips combos both players have. So like if an opponent has less trips than you, but they also have less of everything else, they might end up having more actual combos of trips, but sorry, less combos of trips, but actually more of their range is trips. And here I'm gonna call because a weaker player opened and the big blind is also a weaker player. Also, it's a min raise, so I'm just getting a better price on my call. Free betting also an option. So we call a bet on table 1, and we get this turn where I think we want to just be reopening super polar. We roll a 6, so we're gonna check it back. So yeah, in this case here on the Jack 8-8 board, we open hands like King 8 off. We open hands like 9-8 off. Now, make this board Jack 7-7. We don't open King 7 off. We don't open 8-7 off. We just lost a lot of our trip hands where he still retains a lot of those offsuit 7x combos. I think we have to bet now with exactly Ace-9. It's once he checks the river, his range is supposed to be mainly hands worse than an ace or a trap. For example, he's not really supposed to check the river with Ace-10 plus. It seems like it's hard for us to find bluffs here, but it's really not if you play the turn properly. If you just blast off on the turn with all your air hands, then yes, it is hard to find bluffs here. But if you properly identify that on the turn you want to be playing super polar, maybe even like an overbetter check strategy, mainly checking back, then it's not too hard to find some bluffs and find some value. And on a 13 versus this size, we're just going to fold. I think we just want better blockers too. Not to mention the raise is huge, so versus the huge raise, we just have to defend less. Yeah, he goes for the min bet on the mono board. I think it's fine. I don't think it's necessarily like the optimal size, but I think it's going to perform well. We'll do a decent amount of raising. Not with this hand, though. Too strong to bluff, too weak to bluff. Sorry, too strong to bluff, too weak to value bet. We just have another clear check. Check and mainly win if he checks back. If he bets, we're in a tough spot. Some of his bluffs are maybe ace highs, like ace of spades. Okay. But then again, some of his value bets might be a hand like ace of spades, 5 of hearts on the river, so yeah, really tough spot on the river versus a bet there. We're going to cold 4-bet call with the pocket queens here. Not the greatest spot in the world. Versus the 5-bet jam from the button. Even versus the 5-bet jam from the hijack. I don't actually mind folding queens here. Although I think with the money in there, you're not supposed to. Because it's not like the hijack is folding ace-king. The hijack is still just jamming an ace-king. So while you're technically never ahead, with the dead money in the pot and how much you put in, I think you just have to call with pocket queens. Also, I guess you could be chopping with pocket queens as well. That adds a little bit of equity. $200 big blinds deep, calling queen 10 off there seems kind of bad. Yeah, I'd much rather call any suited hand that I open before I call queen 10 off, I think. There's like a very small check back range on these types of boards, but I think specifically on the rainbow version of this board, Just one third with range is a fine strategy. There's some people who play like big better check. I think big better check on the flush draw version is slightly better. He can't really lead this card as much as he could if I had bet big on the flop. And then table 1 will mix the flop and then high frequency check the turn. Table 2, I think this hand might actually check back the turn sometimes. And on 23, it's pretty low. We'll check back. This is a spot where we do want some protection for our range. We will be checking back this turn a lot. And we have a very easy raise on the river and potentially a call versus the rejam. Blocking, we don't actually block 9-5 suited, but we do block king 5 suited. So I clicked the wrong bet size there. I think I like blocking better with the ace kind of blocking some of his hero calls. Also, I should have considered checking again with the ace, blocking some of the hands that he's going to check back the river with. Like if he does a hand like ace 9, he's not going to bluff that on the river. So when we have an ace, it's kind of more likely he's going to be bluffing me. This board I like half pot or check. As the in-position player, Queen Jack is going to want to mostly bet. This King 9 hand. So I have a feeling it's going to check back the turn less than what I said it would. So I rolled a 23. Maybe it checks back less than that. Does it check back over 23% of the time? Maybe not. And then on the river, I know we have a clear raise. It's just versus the jam. Do we have to call this? And what's the bottom of his jamming range? Is it ace 5 or is it any 5? Because if the bottom of his jamming range is any 5, okay. I like small better check on these paired boards. We definitely want to check back range though. And like what hands is he using as a 3-bet bluff here on the river? So like he bets, I raise, and he goes all in. Like what's he using as a bluff? Is he using a 9? Is he using a king? Gonna make a loose call versus the 3x open, but with 2 recreationals, I kind of like it. Yeah, really tough spot versus the jam with the king 9. I know objectively I'd rather have the 9 of diamonds and the king of clubs. That's easy to see that we'd rather block 9-5 suited, but other than that, I'm not sure. I'm not going to be playing any raises with my hand class, even though I rolled a super high number. I don't think king high really wants to get into the raising range unless it has some sort of like backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw. This is just a clear call. And then versus overbet, I think we even have a call sometimes. This is close versus small size actually. On table 2. It's actually close. And then again, it's a spot, blind v blind, where I'm going to be betting super polar. Bottom of my value is like ace 10 plus probably. And that reflects an overbetter check strategy, I think. And now all of our jack X chop. We block some of the king high hero calls when we have king jack, so I'd rather bet a hand like jack 5 suited than king jack, I think. So if I had king of hearts, 9 of spades, I think I would fold versus the jam. Because we don't block king 5 suited and we don't block 9-5 suited in this king 9 hand. And then when you have the one that's kind of like in the middle, it blocks one of the combos. No, roll a 3-bet here with the ace jack off. So yeah, when you only block one of the combos, so like 9-5 suited will check call the flop is what I'm trying to say. So King 5 suited check calls the flop more than 9-5 suited though. 9-5 suited will mainly check raise the flop. So I guess the king is more relevant than the 9, but you'd still rather have both. I'm not sure who this guy is or why. Okay, this is the classic spot versus the recreationals where you have kind of like a range check spot in theory. But the reasons you have a range check spot are because the cold calling range from the cutoff here is uber tight. But recreationals, I'm going to go for a little cheeky, unbalanced strategy here. Versus recreationals, they call too wide. So if they call too wide, your reasons for checking the flop kind of go away. I kind of like bet very small and call a raise here. Yeah. Okay, maybe I need to change my strategy versus this player. It's okay. I wasn't going to call. I was joking. He saved money. I was going to go all in. He was going to fold. I mean, I saved money. That's for sure. Another interesting board to have a check back range. Again, it's not really bad. It's not going to be bad, but I don't think it's really necessary. What does he have? Like, okay. This is a very interesting line. Roll a call here with pocket nines. We'll mainly call, sometimes 3-bet. Mostly checking back, mostly checking back the flop. I think this river decision is actually really close. I think Jackson 10s would block the river by now. So I think 9s is strong enough to bet. I don't think having a spade is that relevant in the check down line. I think most of his range is like ace jack, ace king, or maybe 8s. I think he does have to hero call some ace highs. I will say that this is thin, considering how tight these positions play, even in the check down to the river spot. But I like it still. I definitely want to be able to have a decent amount of bets here as a bluff, and going a bit thinner I think makes some sense in this spot. So being deep, I don't think we ever fold the ace-4 suited here. We're still playing 3-bet or fold. 100 big blinds deep, I think you could fold this. You can 3-bet it. It's kind of like in the middle. And depending on what size he goes, we're going to call the 4-bet. If he goes to like some ridiculous 5x sizing, I guess we'll fold. Anything reasonable, I think we'll always call. High frequency betting board. Our hand, maybe the type of hand that does not want to bet this board. High number. High frequency bet board. So I think that we do bluff some low pairs, but it's going to be like pocket threes and pocket fours. And then fives and sixes, because he can have threes and fours himself. So it's like the smallest distinction that sixes and fives don't bluff where threes and fours do. Sorry, I shouldn't say bluff, I should say bet. Table one, my hand can do either. Has a lot of nice properties for betting. I think without the diamond, it's going to check back more than it bets, and I think with the diamond, we're going to bet more than it checks. Folding out a hand like Jack 9 off is great. Getting check raise sucks. I think we'll continue though. I'll find it later. Trying to find that. By the way, hold manager 3. Jeez. Tough to use sometimes. So like every time you make a new action, this resets. So if you're ever looking for a hand, you have to pause your tables to basically go find a hand or go look in the actual software. I just want to find that ace-6 hand. We could 3-bet this low frequency. I think it's going to be very low frequency though. I think it mainly just wants to call. Yeah, backdoor flush draws no longer matter on a trips board. We'll be continuing ace highs, overcards. Hands that have a Broadway plus a card under the trips are going to be pure folded. Just doing a lot of folding on that board in general. It's an interesting spot as we have the quads advantage and he has every other type of advantage. He has like the raw equity advantage. He has the overpair advantage. He has the positional advantage. So I think frequent small betting is a fine strategy from in position. I also think big bet or check or even just big bet with range is also a good strategy. I guess the point is that the quads advantage isn't as important as having all the rest. Okay, so we're super deep. So I do want to size up my 4-bet, but I don't want to go too huge. Could squeeze here sometimes on table 2. I think these types of hands get squeezed less than Broadways, which gets squeezed basically pure. Table 1, we're going to start with a range bet. Specifically, you know, versus a recreational when we have queens with the queen of clubs. I don't hate just checking back. Could lead here, table 2. Yeah, I'm going to start with the lead. We have 3-5 suited, none of the other players do. We also have the 2 pairs, which none of the other players do. So he can still have ace-king. So the fact that he can still have ace-king, I'm just going to go for it. Just going to try to stack ace-king. Ah. It's a pretty bad card for my range, I would say, as it lowers the amount of combos of 2 pairs I can have, lowers the amount of combos of sets I can have, and it devalues my biggest advantage, which is 3-5 suited, which he doesn't have. And then on the river with the ace, it's more likely that he has... no, it's not actually. That's not really relevant. I'm just going to block and try to get called by jacks. I do think he can have overpairs in this line that don't raise the flop. I think even a recreational can realize that this is a pretty terrible board for your pocket jacks and not just raise because you have an overpair. In spots that are multi-way that include recreational players, I'm less worried about playing, good, solid, balanced strategies that aren't exploitable. Like ace-9 off is an easy jam at 15 big blinds. We get called by worse. Got a classic race. Can we win one? I think we lost money. I think it rakes more than a small blind. What's a small blind in this game? $2.50. Does it rake more than that? 76, so that's... Rakes $3, right? Yeah, we lost money. Okay. We'll go for the 4-bet here. We're going to size up a little bit, being 150 big blinds deep. This hand's like a low-frequency 4-bet. There's a lot of low-frequency stuff in the suited region, like the Jack-8 suited types, the King 6 suited, stuff like that. Ace-8 suited, Ace-7 suited. I think we'll start with a range bet for a third. Actually, no, we'll start for a range bet for a quarter. I think range bet for a quarter, even though I think you can range bet for a third, I think range bet for a quarter is better. I think, is that one of those spots? I don't know, man. As long as you bet a lot on that board, you can't really go wrong. You have to be a little careful in the sense that he has 7s and 9s and you don't, but it doesn't matter. Like, you have the ace-king advantage, even 150 big blinds deep. And that's a pretty large advantage in a 4-bet pot because the SPR is so low that ace-king is, of course, good enough to stack off. So the larger the open raise size, the more you want a 3-bet compared to call as a ratio. I think that with the small blind caller, who is likely a recreational, I'm inclined to squeeze even more. High frequency checking board, but there will be some bets, and these types of hands will get into the betting range. I'm going to play 1/3 or check. Yeah, I guess I'm going to call one. I'm not happy about this spot. We're getting a good price, though. Can hit a jack, can hit a queen. We get back to straight draws. Now we're just going to fold. I think this is super ace-x heavy with not enough equity to call. Yeah, that's 3 times this player has done something that's basically not good. I don't think you really want to have raises on this board. I could be wrong, actually. Actually, I'm not going to say that because I don't know the spot with the squeeze spot. So yeah, maybe you do want to have some raises, so yeah. A range check board again versus a recreational, I don't mind just throwing in some bets. So 2 recreationals behind, 200 big blinds deep. I'm going to mix in the call. If there's no recreationals left on the table, then I'm going to play 3-better fold, and on 25 I would have folded. So this hand is great, of course. We have a flush draw, straight draw, and a straight flush draw. But our straight draw is garbage, and we have 7 high. So I like checking this flop back. We're not pushing any equity. We're actually a severe equity dog versus any hand, really. Overbet would be interesting from him. I think that he should probably range check this board. It's a very good board for my cold calling range. And so the 5 is great. Again, though, we have that same problem of we're not pushing any equity. So I don't mind just calling. If he checks, I think we have to bet, only because we have 7 high. And the hearts aren't super relevant, I think. And now we just have a fold. I don't think we're going to use this as a raise. I'm also going to wrap this video up. Let's just see how long we've been going here. Checking down the 2, hoping to win versus ace queen and ace queen. The big bet is weird here. I'm really considering check raising, not on table 1, but on table 2. The thing about this hand, though, is that I don't think a flush is folding still, so I think I would rather just have a flush blocker. Jacks, okay. I guess he got called by a 10. Got called by 5s with the heart. Yeah, okay, that's pretty reasonable, too. Tough spot to defend enough on table 1 versus half pot. On 70, I think I'm gonna call. Yeah, not liking it. That's for sure. Got me. All right, that's gonna be it for this video, guys. I'll see you in the next one.